Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. The president appears to be terrified that he has a, quote, rat in his midst inside the White House. That, I should be clear, that's his word, a rat. It's not the kind of language that we're used to hearing from the president of the United States, who is, of course, entrusted by our Constitution with ensuring the nation's laws are faithfully executed, and who's responsible for appointing our most senior law enforcement officers. You'd expect to hear that word in a very different context.
Your uncle was a rat.
No way.
Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Your uncle was a rat, and now he's in the witness protection program.
It's my father's brother you're talking about.
Now, the president is assuring the country not that he has obeyed and upheld the law, but that he does not hire snitches. Tweeting, "The failing New York Times wrote a fake piece today implying that because White House counsel Don McGahn was giving hours of testimony to the special counsel, he must be a John Dean-type rat. But I allowed him and all others to testify. I didn't have to. I have nothing to hide." The president referring to Nixon White House counsel John Dean, of course, who is credited with blowing the whistle on Nixon's law-breaking and ultimately leading to his undoing. And that's how the president responded to the New York Times blockbuster report this weekend that the current White House counsel, Don McGahn, has been cooperating with Robert Mueller's investigation for months, participating in at least 3 voluntary interviews over a remarkable 30 hours. It's jaw-dropping news, a huge development in the probe examining whether the president himself obstructed justice or might have done other things that exceeded his powers. McGahn would seem to be an unlikely rat, as the president put it. A longtime happy warrior for the GOP appointed to the Federal Election Commission by George W. Bush. He's also driving Trump's successful efforts to fill the courts with conservative judges. That includes, of course, Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, who McGahn escorted to meetings on Capitol Hill today, though reporters were interested in a different topic.
Why did you speak so long to the special counsel, Mr. McGahn?
Did you comply because you thought the president would betray you?
Do you regret that decision?
Will you continue to comply?
Have you briefed the White House on everything you told the special counsel?
Now, McGahn has been involved in most of the key events under investigation in Mueller's obstruction probe, at least as far as we know, including Michael Flynn's early ouster from the White House, the president's campaign to get Jeff Sessions to unrecuse himself, the firing of James Comey. It was McGahn, you'll recall, according to the Times at least, who threatened to quit last year when the president tried to have Mueller fired. In fact, ordered him to do so. The Times reports that in his interviews, McGahn laid out how the president tried to ensure control of the investigation, but that he cautioned to investigators he never saw the president go beyond his legal authorities. It's not clear whether any members of the president's legal team, past or present, has a real grasp of just what McGahn told Mueller's team.
We have a good sense, obviously, of what Mr. McGahn testified to. I can figure it out from...
How do you say that good sense? Have you debriefed him?
No, but Mr. Dowd has a good sense of it. He talked to them at the time.
So you don't know what Mr. McGahn, you don't know 100% of what he testified to Mr. Mueller?
I think that through John Dowd, we have a pretty good sense of it. And John Dowd yesterday said, I'll use his words rather than mine, that McGahn was a strong witness for the president. So I don't need to know much more about that.
Okay, well, this all seems like it's cleared up. Now, while the president agonizes over the possibility of what he called a rat inside the White House, although he said he wasn't one, his former employee, Michael Cohen, is reportedly about to face charges for over $20 million in bank fraud. Cohen's attorney says he's been in touch with none other than, you guessed it, John Dean himself about how to flip on a president. Meanwhile, as the jury deliberates over the fate of his campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, they're still deliberating. They ended deliberations today. The president has publicly defended Manafort and attacked the prosecution, which certainly looks a lot like an attempt to taint the jury pool. Now, get this, the president's threatening to go even further, telling Reuters he has chosen not to be involved in the Mueller probe, but is totally allowed to be if he wanted to. I've decided to stay out. Now I don't have to stay out, as you know. I can go in, and I can do whatever. I could run it if I want. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.